A very wise person told me that if I come down here just to talk about policy, you guys won't have any interesting clips to share when you get back to your news station. So let's start with this. Have you ever sat in a chair for 48 hours straight? I've been sitting in this chair for over 50 hours right now because my aide called in last night, and the night before nobody was scheduled. You probably didn't know until now, but this is common for people like me. I've been sitting in this chair since 7:30 a.m. Tuesday morning with a stage 2 pressure sore. To say I'm miserable is an understatement. Sounds unbearable, right? Turns out that's just preparation for this weekend. Tonight I get to go in bed and sleep, but when I get up tomorrow, I'll be back in my chair until Monday night. Just imagine what it must be like sitting in the car on a 6-hour drive somewhere, not even moving your legs or stopping for gas. It's almost impossible unless you're paralyzed. I just wanted to give you some perspective before I started this speech, because this is what me and thousands of other Wisconsinites experience on a regular basis. And we put up with it because it's still better than being in a nursing home. My name is Carl Scholze, and I'm a disability advocate. For the second year in a row, I drove my wheelchair 125 miles from my apartment in Fox Crossing all the way here to the state capitol because the disability community continues to be viewed as a burden on state budgets. Last year, I was pleading to get home health aides paid a living wage and warning people that there would be very noticeable effects from the $900 billion in Medicaid cuts that Donald Trump signed into law on July 4th, 2025. This year is different, however. This year, the danger is no longer hypothetical. Nobody expected the Department of Justice to say they don't view the Americans with Disabilities Act or the Supreme Court's decision in Olmstead versus LC as requiring states to provide home and community-based services to disabled people. Let me be crystal clear about what that means. The federal government is telling states in plain language that they will not be punished if they cut home and community-based services. Apparently, it's not a violation of my civil rights to put me in an institution against my will. Let me repeat that so it sinks in. The federal government is openly telling states there will be no consequences if they defund the very services that keep disabled people living at home. They have effectively given states a green light to warehouse us again. You're probably stunned right now. Unfortunately, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Remember the $900 billion in cuts I mentioned were signed into law last summer? That is exactly why the DOJ released this opinion. States are going to receive less federal Medicaid funding, and they will have no choice but to cut programs. And when they decide on what to cut, the programs that serve people with disabilities will be first up on the chopping block. That means people like me may soon be forced to choose between our physical health or living the rest of our lives in a facility. That's not freedom. That's more like a slow, bureaucratic form of imprisonment. The people who wrote and voted for that know this. They know I'll never receive a letter that says you must go to an institution, so they can sit back and claim that nobody's being forced. But as I just explained, one of the many ways it'll inevitably happen is slowly cutting services. This is scary enough if you are in the disability community, but it gets even worse. The Office of Management and Budget in Washington, D.C. is rewriting the rules for how federal grants flow to states. In May, they released a sweeping proposal that restructures the entire federal financial assistance system. This includes a new political review process for grants, making it easier for agencies to terminate funding the moment it no longer aligns with the administration's priorities. And it means tighter central control from unelected political appointees. None of the people involved in this decision-making process were elected, by the way. They also didn't have to be confirmed by Congress. For Wisconsin, This means even more uncertainty and deeper potential cuts to independent living supports, caregiver wages, and the services that keep people with disabilities free. Now, I'm not sure why, but some politicians still seem to believe that these Medicaid cuts will never touch them. And if any of you are listening right now, let me assure you, those $900 billion cuts will affect you or someone you love as well. Disability doesn't discriminate by party, by bank account, or by the job you held the day before everything changed. A sudden injury, a progressive disease, or simply aging into the years of needed care can move anyone from independence to reliance on this program overnight. Don't get me wrong, I hope everyone listening lives a long, healthy, happy life and never needs to rely on Medicaid, but the numbers tell a different story. 56% of U.S. adults report that they themselves or a family member have received Medicaid at some point in their lives. That number rises to 69% when you consider a close friend. The need is so massive that every single day, tens of thousands of Americans apply for Medicaid. Let's just stop and think about that. Every day, tens of thousands of Americans. It's an entire city reaching out for help every single day. And when Medicaid is cut, the damage doesn't stop with the person receiving care. Home care workers, nursing home facility staff, therapists, and the local businesses that support them, they lose hours and wages too. Cuts that look clean on a spreadsheet become concrete losses in every neighborhood in this state. I'm not out here campaigning for any one candidate. I'm campaigning for the largest minority group in the country. The only one that anyone can join at any moment. You're literally only one fall, slip, accident, or diagnosis away from being a part of this gang. We aren't asking for special treatment. We are asking for the basic services that allow disabled people to live with dignity and independence that we deserve. This isn't a partisan demand, this is a practical one. To the politicians who say they support us, we need concrete, practical ideas on where we go from here. Tell us your strategy. Tell us what viable options we still have. Vague statements of concern, they're no longer enough. We may be disabled, but we are not disinterested and we are not disinvolved. We read the legislation that affects us. We make the phone calls. We mail the letters. We send the emails. We are watching. We are organizing. We show up. And when we cast our ballots, we will remember exactly who treated our lives as an afterthought and who treated them as a priority. Thank you. I'll go over here next to Matt to give you guys room for your speaking. You're fine, Matt. You can stay right there. You're on wheels, right?
Thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Jason Glozier, and I'm the director of the Wisconsin Coalition of Independent Living Centers and one of the co-chairs of the Survival Coalition of Disability Organizations. We're here today to receive Carl after his journey, a journey that he shouldn't have had to make, but a journey that now is more necessary than ever. 36 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law. And for 36 years, the disability community has had to fight against systems that would rather profit off of their existence than give them their freedom. We're at a time now where we've seen unprecedented attacks on the civil rights of people with disabilities. Carl mentioned two of the major ones: cuts to Medicaid and the decision by the Department of Justice not to follow its own guidance on the Olmstead decision. For decades, we've been able to count on the federal government to hold states accountable for providing civil rights to people with disabilities and ensuring their full inclusion, their freedom, and their ability to receive the blessings of liberty that are guaranteed by the Constitution. We're now seeing a constitutional crisis where politicians are putting profits before people and designing systems that work through collusion to force individuals with disabilities into costly care and treatment while taking away the services that keep them in the community. Carl, I want to say that I wish you didn't have to do this journey, but I'm so grateful that you had the courage and the dedication to do something that other people haven't done, and that's get involved. The only way that we're going to hold the decision makers in the building behind me accountable are by getting involved in the process. Not just by voting, but by showing up after we vote to ensure that they're making decisions that put people first and keep people in the community. Thank you for your contribution, Carl.
Good afternoon. I'm Tami Jackson. I'm also a Survival Coalition co-chair, and I work for the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. Carl talked about the impact on people with disabilities directly when Medicaid is cut. But it's important to know how far that ripple effect goes when home care is not there. Family members have been providing enormous amounts of uncompensated care for decades in some cases to keep people in their homes, and the states have benefited from this. The home care system we have has been built over decades, and it is a supplement to the care that family members provide. Even small cuts to the number of hours that somebody like Carl and many others get can mean the difference between being in their home and being locked away in a nursing facility where you don't have the freedom to decide what your hours are, when you eat, who you can see, whether or not you can commute to a job, and 1,000 other daily things that most of us are not thinking about right now. So when Carl talks about the impact of what Medicaid cuts mean and what it means for states to kind of have a free range to look at those services as optional, it also ignores how many workers in this state are paid for by Medicaid dollars. Medicaid reimburses care that has already been given. It is one of the largest payers for the hospitals we all use, the rehab centers we use, and any care that you need in your home. And it is supplemented by family members who, if those care hours go down, take themselves out of the workforce, reduce their own work hours, and make a real economic problem for Wisconsin as we have fewer and fewer bodies that are able to do all of what needs to be done. The ripple effect is just getting started, and it will be states who are in the position to decide what happens next. And for people like Carl and the family members who care about him, and all of the other people in this state who have disabilities, those decisions are extraordinarily critical, and they are going to be coming in the next biennial budget. Please understand that the system that we create for people like Carl is the one that will be waiting for you.
Anyone in the group can take questions.
All right, if there are no questions, we thank you all for being here. We will be around if you have follow-ups that you want with either Tami, Carl, or myself.
Jason, if you want to share the survey that you made.
We also want to take a moment to share our survey that Survival Coalition put together on caregiver statistics. In a typical week, almost 60% of unpaid caregivers are providing as much or more care hours than a half-time job. 31% of caregivers are providing care more than 60 hours per week. Under any sort of labor laws, that wouldn't be fair treatment. It shouldn't be fair to expect our families to provide that care unpaid. I'll share this around with reporters who would like it. Thank you.
You have been watching a production of Wisconsin Eye, your unfiltered window into legislative deliberations and public policy programming, where our mission is to provide Wisconsinites an opportunity to access the legislative process and connect with conversations that inform our citizenry. Please consider supporting our mission, and thank you for watching. Wisconsin Eye, policy made public.